A firestorm has erupted today after Donald Trump publicly condemned 6 Democratic lawmakers.
We are in a time where there is so much violence and there's uproars every single day.
Andrew, formerly known as Prince Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has snubbed Congress.
I mean, Keir Starmer's actually been vaguely open to the idea of this because he wants to distance himself from Andrew, but this would be a nightmare for the palace.
Now he's done it again. A firestorm has erupted today after Donald Trump publicly condemned 6 Democratic lawmakers who encouraged US troops to refuse unlawful orders. Now, the president has called that seditious behaviour and suggested they could face the death penalty. Obviously, that's caused an almighty stink. It came up this afternoon, I should even say, at the White House briefing, where instead of rowing back on it, Caroline Leavitt, the the president's press secretary, well, came out swinging.
This morning, President Trump accused 6 Democratic lawmakers of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos, and that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country, and if they...
Caroline Leavitt went on for some time on a similar point. Sarah said, 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19 even, if Donald Trump had tweeted or put on Truth Social that he suggested that congressmen should be, risked public execution for sedition, it would have been wall to wall for days. Just like when he called a female reporter Piggy on the plane on Sunday. The sort of outrage machine would have really kicked up. Yeah, there's been a bit of backlash to this comment today, but it feels to me that sort of everyone's slightly immune and sort of slightly numb to this stuff the president says now. Is that a good thing, or are we just so through the looking glass that he can basically say anything and everyone just kind of shrugs and goes, it's Donald Trump?
That's the problem. So let's actually take a step back from Donald Trump for a second, which is very hard to do because it's very
he is the news vortex that is that we all dance around.
So, to the viewers, if you haven't watched the video, go watch it, because it is written by an overpaid, overworked Democratic staffer. That being said, we are in a time where there is so much violence and there's uproars every single day. September 10th, when Charlie Kirk was murdered. This is the same exact violence that could come from these 6 congressmen deciding to say all of these terrible things, right? And we have to bring up one word: insurrection. Them calling for this unrest is very similar to...
Sort of, but then also Donald Trump suggesting that, he could consider capital punishment for elected politicians. That doesn't really take the temperature down after spending, rightly calling out violent rhetoric on the left.
Right. And, I mean, the one thing when I was doing research about this that really surprised me, if it was really that big of a deal, if Trump really was on the nose, then there would be an active investigation into these 6 congressmen, right? When James Comey released the 8647 image on social media, there was...
Just to explain for our less read-in viewers, the 8646 is basically a sort of meme, that sort of coded meme that...
Yes.
What is it? Calling for the death of Donald Trump in some fashion. How do the numbers work?
86, just death to 47, just calling out.
Fine, yeah.
So there was an investigation within minutes, and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, they were all over it. If it was really that serious, we should see that. But soldiers don't want to go to Leavenworth.
Yeah.
That is what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Freddie, he's kind of got a point. You can't really have congressmen saying, arguing that military, normal veterans and former CIA members who are now in Congress urging people not to follow orders.
I don't think that's what they said. They said that they shouldn't follow orders that are unlawful.
Which ones are they?
If they get orders that are unlawful, they were saying don't follow them.
But by putting it on the agenda, you're saying there is something that is unlawful already.
Well, I think that the administration hasn't been that keen and respectful of the rule of law in the past 9 months to put it in an understated manner. I don't think.
I mean, they've won in the. They haven't had anything really struck down permanently.
Well, so much of it is still going through the Supreme Court, so it's going to take a lot of time for.
But do you think they're justified to think that some of the orders that have been given are?
I can imagine that the primary concern is what's going on in the Caribbean right now with the strikes against the boats crossing the sea there.
On the numbness sort of point, though, he's not beyond Teflon now, isn't it? It's like, yeah, he says something, and there's a big row, and Chuck Schumer and the Democrats line up and rush to the airwaves, and CNN get very cross, but actually, the next day,
I sort of disagree.
The next day, it's gone.
Well, maybe the outrage is gone just because Trump is such a good politician, but the actual things that he's doing, the reality of his language and what he says he's going to do, he does. I mean, that's been the big difference about this term compared to the first term, is that he's able to do what he says. Therefore, I think actually we should take his words more seriously than we did during the first term.
Really? I mean, isn't this kind of show business now rather than actual action? Because, he hasn't really got a huge amount of time left. If he was to lose the midterms, he's going to be a pretty lame duck leader for 2 years. Actually, his sort of ever-decreasing half-life is diminishing, and actually now the future of the Republicans and the future of the right is looking to the next generation.
Well, it's a threat, isn't it? It's essentially a threat from the president.
Do you really think he's actually threatening to hang people?
Well, I don't know. It's essentially a way to intimidate people, right? To say, get back in line. And he's done this many times. And we've also seen him follow through on certain occasions. Do I think he's going to order the National Guard that is still walking around DC into the Capitol tomorrow? No, probably not. But I think it's a mistake to just constantly dismiss what he says.
So you hit a nail on the head right there. I don't agree with everything, but you hit a nail on the head. This goes back to the National Guard. So they are going wild and crazy putting out this video because they know they don't have the votes to actually create legislation and pass it to limit Trump's power. This is all about the National Guard being deployed to these, like we said before, cities of rebellion. The one that Newsom and J.B. Pritzker, they're just letting it happen while things are literally up in flames.
Talking of sedition in Congress and sending in the National Guard, Freddie, the Andrew, formerly known as Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has snubbed Congress. He has refused. He has missed the deadline to say whether he'll come and testify in the Epstein cases. Fill us in on where we're at.
Right, so this was the Democrats on the Oversight Committee within the House. They said to Andrew, please come over and explain yourself and what you've done. They set a deadline. He's ignored that deadline. That was today or yesterday, certainly this week. He doesn't seem to want to engage, understandably, because this would be quite a shocking moment for a former member, I don't know whether he's still a member of the royal family, but to come to Congress. I mean, I spoke to Ro Khanna today, who's the congressman behind the Epstein bill, and he said that he thinks that Andrew will have to cave at some point.
Do they have any summoning power? Do they have any power?
As far as I'm aware, that they can't subpoena a foreign citizen.
I mean, given the payoffs and the ongoing investigations and probes into Epstein and his life, I mean, presumably he's quite risky to step foot in the United States at the best of times, let alone to testify to Congress for Andrew. I imagine he'll never be back in this country ever again.
No, and also I imagine the palace won't want him to do that. I mean, Keir Starmer's actually been vaguely open to the idea of this because he wants to distance himself from Andrew, but this would be a nightmare for the palace.
So it's 250 years since we had our little disagreement in awe. Was it time for America to throw some turnips again at the royals, or would you like to see Andrew dragged to the Hill to testify?
Exactly.
Yep.
I think we need to. James Comer is going to hit the nail on the head. We're going to make it happen. I mean, the Democrats don't want to make this a joke.
I will eat my hat if that man ever appears in Congress. I'm afraid. Sarah Selip, Republican strategist, thank you as ever for joining us. And on his debut, and what a debut it was, Freddie Hayward of the New Statesman. Guys, have a great weekend. That's it from us.